Hello and welcome back to the Hesse Bros pod. It's your boy B Hess Brent Hesse, and joining me, brother from Bloomington, Indiana, the number five ranked team in the country. If you can't tell from the banners behind him, that is my younger brother Luke Hesse. Luke, another great week of NFL football, an exciting week of college football ahead that we might have to just talk about really quickly. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. The Hoosiers are heading to Columbus this weekend, and we're about to get a W. I know we're going to be throwing in a lot of locks this week, but the biggest one by far, the Hoosiers are not losing by two touchdowns to these boys in Columbus. They've been destroying every team they've played this year and just had one close matchup against Michigan. Signetti's going to have the boys fired up after this bye, and I can't wait to watch some college football and see the Hoosiers lock that spot in the playoffs.
No, it's going to be very exciting. Hoosiers play the early game, big noon kickoff, top five matchup. I agree. I like Indiana to cover in that game. I'll definitely be betting Indiana to cover, and I'll be watching it from Arrowhead Stadium parking lot tailgate zone because I'll be getting ready for the 3:30 game that I'll be going to live. Colorado at Kansas. The Jayhawks coming off back-to-back ranked wins against Iowa State and the previously undefeated BYU Cougs. Now they try to go for three straight against Dion and the boys. So I'm fired up. I'm gonna need my Travis Hunter jersey to get here quick because I'm rooting for Colorado and the Buffs to make the playoffs. They win. They control their own destiny. They just got to win these last two regular season games and then win the Big 12 championship. They get in. So I like Buffs money line against Kansas, and I do like Indiana to cover the spread. I don't. I think I think Ohio State wins. If I have to pick a score, I think it's going to be about like 35-30 Ohio State. But that's my predictions. In Colorado beats Kansas maybe 28-24, something like that. Close game, but I like the Buffs in that one. What's your opinions?
I definitely like the Hoosiers just squeaking it out. I think we have everything we need. I'll give it 30-28 Hoosiers.
You think they
Game
win
winning field
outright?
goal.
You think they win
Yeah.
outright?
Oh, we'll win it. We'll win it.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean,
Any
if you haven't
opinions
been
on the
locked in,
Colorado Buffs that I'll be at?
yeah, I'll take the Buffaloes in that one. I think they're really putting something together. Deion Sanders is getting some hype to maybe even be an NFL coach after the job he's done with Colorado. And I don't see why a team like maybe even the Cowboys or any of these other teams that have an open position wouldn't want a guy like him that knows the college players that are coming up in the next couple of years, can help build a squad and also can just build that fire to the locker room that a lot of these NFL teams are missing. I like what the Buffs are doing.
I appreciate that. I guess I've just adopted the Buffs this year. Obviously, not my team. My team, Louisville, they absolutely choked against Stanford last week, so they're completely toast. But, I'm basically just delaying the inevitable here. We have to talk Chiefs, Bills, and try to put it off for some college football coverage. But Chiefs, Bills, Luke, you have a question for me about that game, or do you want me to just go ahead and just give my response?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ask, are you surprised about what happened? Did you think that Mahomes would be able to pull out something late? I certainly thought maybe when the Chiefs were only down a field goal, they'd be able to get a stop on Josh Allen and be able to put up a game-winning touchdown or field goal. Were you surprised by what happened?
Well, I was not surprised by the final real drive by Kansas City. When they were down nine, start of the fourth quarter, that was an obvious live bet Chiefs go down, score a touchdown, and they did it surgically because that's what they've done all season. When it's mattered the most in the fourth quarter on third downs, Mahomes' favorite quarter has been fourth downs, and I've been telling everyone Mahomes' favorite down is obviously third downs. They go down, they get the touchdown to Noah Gray, his second of the game. But you're right, the Chiefs defense just could not come up with the stop. I got to give credit to Josh Allen, played a heck of a ball game, made plays with his legs, made plays with his arms. So, you know what? It's a tough loss for Kansas City. It breaks their streak. They hadn't lost since Christmas. So it was kind of weird. I was like, wow, this is what it feels like for every other normal football fan in the world that their team obviously loses more than once a year. So it was just kind of bizarre feeling like, wow, the Chiefs actually lost a game. A little bit tough, but I'm not too worried overall. I was a little bit surprised that the Chiefs lost. Like we talked about last week, I had Chiefs to win this game. Chiefs always win when they're underdogs. But the Bills are a good team. I haven't been maybe as high on the Bills as some people this year, but they've always been high up in my 12 pack. I'm excited to see where I put them today. I hope everyone else is excited for that because it's going to be a very interesting top of the rankings. But basically, what it comes down to is the Chiefs, I hope they're going to be fine. It's going to depend on how they respond to this game. The defense has to be better. The defense, this was their worst game in quite some time. They gave up 30 points. They haven't given up 30 points since the Super Bowl, not last year, the year before against the Eagles. So they were on a hell of a run on not giving up 30 points. They did to Josh Allen. Tough loss. And that is my main reaction to the game. I do have one other reaction, though.
What's that?
Well, there's been a lot of people on the internet, a lot of people that are really focused on Chiefs games that are locked into not the Chiefs and not even their opponents, but to the other guys on the field. And those are the guys in the striped shirts. But for some reason, this week, I haven't seen very much on the internet about the people that are very critical of referees during Chiefs games. It's just kind of odd when I saw Curtis Samuel go one way, I saw Mac Hollins go the other way, and Mac Hollins just absolutely drilled the Chiefs cornerback, let Curtis Samuel get wide open for a touchdown. That was not the final touchdown. Obviously, the final touchdown was the Josh Allen run, but the touchdown that put the Bills up by 2 scores the first time in that second half. And it seems like everyone's just quiet about that one. I don't know if they took a week off of being internet officials for Chiefs games, but no one seems to be talking about that one. I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, it could have been two flags on that play too. It looked like Samuel lined up offsides, kind of like Tony did in that game last year. Whenever Travis Kelce threw that backwards pass, the wide receiver lined up offsides. It looked like probably, and didn't get called this time. So maybe the Zebras are over here, giving a bone back to the rest of the league after all that they've done in favor of the Chiefs. They might need to bring out a few more few more bags of money for them for the refs next time. Andy Reid doesn't want to forget that back at home.
I just think that maybe officials just make mistakes, just like sometimes Mahomes doesn't throw a perfect ball every time, or sometimes Josh Allen throws a pick on a fourth down. Just like that. Maybe the referees maybe don't play perfect every time, but somehow the people are always adamant whenever the Chiefs end up winning a game. They're always talking about them, but for some reason this week, I don't know, they were just quiet. That was the weirdest part about it all to me is that I was waiting for those Chiefs official guys to start making their noise on the internet, and they were very silent this week. So that was my biggest surprise of the game, I guess. But on the field, it was, yeah, the Chiefs made a great score late in the game to get it close. Josh Allen makes the play of the game. Give all the props to him. I think he's a great quarterback. We could talk about quarterback rankings if we want. Certainly think he's a top three quarterback in the NFL, but he's going to have to win something more important than just a regular season Super Bowl for that to happen. And he's good at the regular season Super Bowls, but it's the playoffs where he's not been the same quarterback or his team hasn't gotten the results that they needed. So that is my main takeaways on Chiefs Bills. Chiefs still number one in the AFC. That is the most important thing.
I got one more question for you about that game, Brent. You mentioned the quarterback play. Mahomes had a couple picks in that game, and the defense didn't step up. Which one are you more worried about as far as the rest of the season goes and a potential Super Bowl run? The defense not stepping up, or Mahomes letting the team down
That's a
with those
great
picks?
question. That's a great question. Both have valid concerns. Mahomes throws a first interception on his very first play of the game, right? Kind of gets hit late, throws it, lofts it over his intended receiver, Gray, into the arms of the Buffalo Bills defense. Then at the very end of the game, on a fourth down 9 in the final 2 minutes, he tries to force the ball in because the Chiefs need to get some points, right? Throws an interception. So he ended the game, first throw of the game, interception, last throw of the game, interception. Last quarterback I can remember do that in a big game was Ryan Tannehill in a playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's not a great comparison, is it? And meanwhile, for the defense, yeah, they gave up 30 points. They had 0 sacks against Josh Allen. It's the first time since they played Josh Allen in a playoff game a couple years ago where the Chiefs have recorded 0 sacks. So that's also an issue. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, usually really good at doing that. So my answer to that question Neither. Are you kidding me? Neither. I'm definitely not worried about the best quarterback in the world, and I'm definitely not worried about the best defense in the National Football League. I'm not worried about either of those. They will be absolutely fine going forward. Mahomes is about to start picking it up. I feel like he's got great weapons. They were a little neutralized Kelsey and Hopkins last week. They were looking to try to go to X-Man worthy. He made some good plays. He also had a tough play. Mahomes maybe missed him. Could have been a touchdown. Instead, it should have been still a 50-yard pass down the field. And Worthy doesn't get the foot in. That's fine. The defense, they're going to be fine. They need to get a little bit more healthy. They're going to have to come up with a better game plan against Josh Allen. But in Spags, we trust. I am not worried about either of those things. They are completely fine.
All right, that's what I would expect to hear from you, BS. But I definitely have my concerns the way Mahomes is playing, leading the league in interceptions as the best quarterback in the world. I don't know how many times that's going to be able to happen, but we'll see how the rest of the year plays out.
Yeah, that's our Chiefs and Bills talk. Where are we going next?
Well, might as well go where there wasn't a game really, up in Detroit. I mean, it was over in the first half, just like half the Lions games are. And it's because we score a touchdown on every single drive. And, Dan Campbell came out, and I was kind of on the same boat as this. Like, how can the offense get better? Yeah, we should have scored about 5 plays earlier on some of those drives. We really have a lot of room to improve. And I mean, that just goes to show whenever you got the best offense in the league, that's just how it goes, man. You're gonna score against anyone. You can call it the Jags, you can say whatever, but that's an NFL team. Those are guys playing for their jobs, for their coach, and we saw what the Lions did to him. I'm surprised Doug Peterson still has a job right now.
There's a reason why last week we didn't talk much Lions Jaguars because I told you Jaguars with Mac Jones starting are the worst team in the league, and they proved that. So the only thing I could say about that game is I looked like, I'm trying to find some anytime touchdown scores Sunday morning. I'm like David Montgomery minus 240. I've never seen a touchdown score that low in an NFL game. Like maybe Ashton Genty is for Boise State. But that's about it. So I was like, I can't even bet that. Of course, he scored a touchdown on the very first drive and had plenty more the rest of the game. And there were three players for the Lions that touchdown score props were minus ball. You should have just parlayed them all with their fourth most likely scorer, Jamison Williams, because they all scored. Lions, they love blowing out teams. I'll give them that. 38-point wins now 3 times this season. The rest of the NFL has zero. The Lions are the best team in the NFL when it comes to beating absolute garbage squads. So congrats to the Lions. A good win. They're rolling.
We also are the best team in the NFL whenever it comes to having the longest winning streak in the league. Haven't lost since week 2. Oh, it feels good to say that, and I don't think we're letting it up till the Super Bowl. What team's going to stop them? It's going to take a maybe a 6-pick game from Goff for the Lions to lose a game. I don't know what it's going to take at this point, but I can't wait to see it play out. Any other games you want to talk about from last week,
Yeah,
BS?
we got to talk about a lot of the other games because a lot of them we were wrong on, or at least one of us was wrong on, but they were great games. I'll let you start. Washington versus Philadelphia on Thursday night. You've got the Ravens versus the Steelers middle of the day Sunday, and Bengals Chargers Sunday night. I think you might have gone 0 for 3 on your picks on all three of those. So which one is your biggest takeaway out of any of those three games? So all are between teams that I think we agree between all six of those teams, they're good teams. I know Chargers, Bengals, that was kind of a make or break game for both of them. But where do you see the chips falling after any of those three results?
I think the biggest concern has got to be Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. It seemed like on Thursday night he couldn't really get anything going in that game, and I think a big part of that is that he's not running the ball as much as he did to start the season, and also Cliff Kingsbury's offenses tend to not do as well whenever it comes to November and December crunch time in the NFL. So I'm definitely worried about the Commanders. I still think they're a good team, but the way that the NFC is shaking out, they could drop a few more games and be out of the playoffs entirely. So they really do gotta step up here. And I'm worried if Jaden Daniels isn't running the ball, they might not be able to put up as many points as they had earlier in the season. I think the Ravens will be fine. Lamar had a bad game against a good defense, but that's definitely the biggest point here.
So let's talk about that one more then. We both were on Washington to start the year. I have a bet 13-1. I don't know if anybody's aware of. I've tried to say that as much as I could on Hesse Bros Pod. Washington to win the division, 13-1 odds. What should I do with that? Should I cash out and just get anything I can? Should I hedge with the Eagles and parlay that with Washington to make the playoffs? Or should I ride it out? Does Washington still have a chance to win that division over Philadelphia?
If it were me, I'd ride it out, just given that I believe the Commanders still play the Eagles again later in the year, and if they can get that win, who knows? We've seen the Eagles tumble late in the year, even though they didn't have Saquon last year, and that certainly is going to help them out a lot more this year. But I'd ride it out. They're still right there with a chance, if anything goes one way or another in a different game, then maybe you hedge. If the Commanders are able to get a win, the Eagles have a tough game coming up this week against the Rams. So maybe after this week, you got a better chance to hedge or cash out. Definitely wouldn't do anything with it right now.
I like that. So you mentioned Kingsbury and the Washington team. They always just kind of struggle late in the year. I think the biggest thing though is Jaden Daniels doesn't look like that same quarterback from the first 5 weeks. He had that rib injury and he kind of masked it with the Hail Mary against the Bears, where he got outplayed in the fourth quarter by Caleb Williams going into that. It looked like the Bears were going to steal that game. Since then, they've lost two tough ones against good teams, the Steelers and the Eagles. Not like they're losing to bad teams, but they have lost, and Daniels hasn't looked as dynamic. So that is definitely the most interesting of the three to me. I think you're right. We just have to give Washington a week, give the Eagles a week, see what happens next week, and look forward. When it comes to your Ravens assessment, I agree completely. Steelers just happened to have Lamar's number. And when it mattered the most, Lamar went down the field, got the touchdown, was unable to get the 2 point conversion. So I still have some confidence in the Ravens. I thought the Steelers were certainly being disrespected. Once I saw the hook, I ended up landing on Steelers late last week because getting the 3 points and even the field goal had to do that. Justin Tucker was abysmal. Meanwhile, Boswell was the MVP on the other side. I don't know if there's much more to say about that game. We're going to talk about both these teams, I think, in their upcoming matchups next week. And then the last one, Chargers versus Bengals. Wow. Herbert puts on a show first half. Burrow does the same in the second half. And then late, though, once again, the Bengals just find ways to lose games like they've done all season.
Yeah, as y'all know, we record this on a Wednesday, and by Monday night, I had switched my pick to the Chargers. I wish I could have let y'all know that, but yeah, I was on the Chargers right before that game. It just seemed like Burrow was going to have to carry the team, and he did. And they should have won, but their kicker can't make the game-winning kicks, and we've seen that play out many times in this league. It comes down to a kick of the ball one way here, one way this way, one way that way, and the Chargers ended up getting it done. They're a good team, and the Bengals are really needing some wins here if they want any chance in the playoff race. And I mean, Burrow's the guy to do it, but it might be too little, too late for him. You think they got a chance?
I think they have an outside chance because I still think the Dolphins have a chance, and I think they have basically the same record. So, yeah, they still have an outside chance. I mean, if we want to talk about another team, Denver impressed me this week. I was on the Falcons. You were opposed. That's the one you definitely had the upper edge on. Denver looked great. Falcons looked abysmal. So they're going to have to catch Denver, I think, because obviously they're not catching the Chargers now. The Chargers have the tiebreaker against them, and I don't think that they're catching either the Ravens or the Steelers in their division to be second place. So yeah, they're gonna have to catch the Broncos. And right now Denver is playing good ball. They've got a phenomenal defense. I have to give credit to Bo Nix. I don't know. I have to give credit to Sean Payton for sure, the coach. He's doing a great job there. So I don't really have much faith left in Cincinnati. They are definitely, if I have to rank the teams the most likely to make the playoffs in the AFC, they fall below the obvious six. They fall below Denver. They fall below Indianapolis, who got a big win, and they fall below Miami. So they are very low on my chances. They're basically the last team I think that does have a chance to have a win. They're to make the playoffs. I think they're only ahead of basically the bottom feeders that we've already ruled out. So if you're gonna brag on your late pick on Chargers, I said Chargers last week. I didn't even end up betting them before the game. I did bet a Will Dissly touchdown. He scores first touchdown of the game, and then once the Bengals tied the game up and they were favored, that's when I bet the Chargers at plus money and ended up getting the win. So happy about that one. But yeah, those are the big games last Sunday. We kind of just briefly touched on Denver. If you want to talk more about that one, we can. Or if there's any other games that surprised you, caught your eye, or you think are worth a mention before we move on to next week, let's hear it.
Let's get to it. You all already know. If you haven't been locked into these games yet, it's time to do so now. It's late November, early December. This is when the big games happen, like in college football and in NFL. It's time to lock in for all football fans. This is what you live for as an NFL fan.
Yeah, and we've got great matchups this week. So Thursday night is Steelers at the Browns. You kind of burnt me, Luke. You were all over Browns last week against the Saints. I ended up riding with. Browns have now screwed me over twice recently as just a hapless team against the Chargers and the Saints. So I don't think I'll even be touching that game because Browns are on the no-fly list. If you're a terrible team and you burn me twice, you are definitely off the board. Even though I think maybe at home on a short week it's a good matchup. I don't know, but I'm not touching that one. Then we've got the Chiefs. They play the Panthers in Carolina in a bounce back game. Certainly, hopefully, but there's a lot of good games. You're going to be attending one of them this week. And we've got some other massive ones, especially in the NFC with 49ers at Packers, two teams we definitely have to talk about. Eagles at Rams and Cardinals at Seahawks. Three massive games for NFC implications. And then Monday night, Ravens at Chargers. Where do you want to start?
Well, I hope we can get this pod out so some people can see this, but I think you got to get your money early on Thursday night. I'm not staying away. I think, first of all, the over at 37 is free. Like, there's no way. Jameis Winston is going to be airing this ball out, and the Steelers are going to be up. There's going to be more than 37 points in the game. I don't see it being, just some sort of dogfight the entire game. The Browns last week in their loss had over 400 passing yards. And so this team isn't built like you would expect a Browns team to be built exactly. They're not going to be able to completely stop the Steelers, and Najee Harris is going to be going off. Definitely take the over, and I like the Steelers minus 3.5 too. I feel like they're playing well, and it should be somewhat of a high scoring game, and the Steelers are going to get it done handily.
All right, well, there you have it. Thursday night, that's Luke's picks. I don't even have a Thursday night pick, so I'll go ahead and talk about the pick that I'm most excited for this week, and that has to be the Cardinals at the Seahawks. The Cardinals just keep getting it done, brother. I don't know what more people need to see from this team. They are now all alone, top of the NFC West after the 49ers collapsed late against the Seahawks. The 49ers didn't have Kittle in that game. They didn't have Bosa for either of the late two Seahawk touchdown drives that ultimately were the difference. Congratulations. I was happy about that. Seahawks take out the 49ers. Looks better for my Cardinals to win the division or just make the playoffs in general. And the Cardinals, we've talked about the gauntlet of a road they've played early on that only keeps looking better. Cardinals wins against the Chargers. That one looks better. Cardinals win against the Dolphins with Tua. That one looks better. And the Cardinals just keep on motoring. I'll take them in close to a pick 'em against Seattle.
I like that bet too. I feel like the Seahawks are people are still overvaluing the 49ers, and the Seahawks getting that dub is just going to make the Seahawks seem like to Vegas and everyone else like they're some superstar team. And in reality, I feel like the 49ers have been overhyped. I've been with the people thinking, this is a team that's going to continue to do what they have in past years, and it just isn't happening. The Seahawks getting a good win at San Francisco, but the Cardinals are the sneaky team that are going to be able to get it done this week.
Yeah, Cardinals. I'm glad you're finally on board with the Cardinals. You had the 49ers way above the Cardinals in the 12 pack last week. I tried to call you out on it. I'm glad you understand now. And let's talk 49ers because they're playing in Lambeau at Green Bay. Packers are 2-point favorites, less than a field goal at home. Purdy's banged up. Kittle's probably going to play. Bosa's banged up. Packers, they snuck out a win against Chicago last week, maybe a game they shouldn't have ended up winning, but they ended up doing it. 49ers lose this game. Their season is pretty much wraps. What's going on?
I feel like this is where the Packers get it to get them. The the 49ers are reeling right now, but I do think it'll be a close game. However, Jordan Love has not been playing up to his standards so far this year, and I feel like this is a good spot for him to get back to it. Like you said, Bosa's a little banged up, and I feel like they're going to finally get their weapons in order in this game. This is the time for them to do it, and I like the Packers in this one. The NFC North, it's time for them to rise again from the ashes. They've been kind of going a little steady here, a little bit more under the radar. Everyone was so surprised by them at the start of the year as being the best division. It's time for them to prove it again this week.
Well, let's talk about another NFC matchup. Eagles at Rams. This is a Sunday night game, and the Rams are slight underdogs, 3 points against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, they're getting off a long week. They got to play on Thursday against Washington. Looked really good. At this point, are you nervous, Luke? You mentioned it last week. You had Eagles as your top NFC contender outside of the Lions. Are you nervous that the Eagles are certainly the number one contender against the Lions? And is that a problem going forward and in this game?
I do think that they are the biggest threat to the Lions. However, I'm not really too worried about them just because of the Lions' rush defense, what they've been able to show. And the Eagles are relying so heavily on their rushing game with Saquon. And I believe that the Lions are going to be able to stop them whenever it comes down to it. However, in this game against the Rams, I feel like the Eagles are going to keep rolling. It's going to be a close game. I don't know. Honestly, I might flip on this one come Sunday night, depending on how I'm feeling with how Puka and Cooper Kupp have been playing so well. But this is going to be a great matchup on Sunday night, and the over 49 is looking really good here. I think that these teams are just going to absolutely blow up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I don't mind the over at all because I'm definitely in a bind when it comes to picking a winner in this game. I think it's going to be a fun one. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on the Eagles. Well, we already talked about three NFC teams or three NFC games, but there's even a fourth NFC game that I'm very interested in, and that is my underdog upset of the week, and it is the Minnesota Vikings going into Chicago. Sam Darnold is coming into a pumpkin more than ever. Even against Tennessee last week, it looked like if Tennessee just didn't shoot themselves in the foot, they might be able to pull off the upset against Minnesota. And I was so impressed with what the Bears did. Yes, they cost me some money. They didn't end up beating the Packers, but there's money to be made on getting it back with Chicago. Caleb is dicing. His connection with Rome is looking better. They got rid of Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, and their offense looked the best it's had in quite some time. Shane Waldron leaves Seattle last year, and Geno is now leading the NFL in passing, just beat the 49ers. That guy is not a good coach. So I'm very confident at home now, Chicago against Minnesota. Give me the points. Give me the outright winner in Caleb and the Bears. I'm going back to the well one more time.
I love it. This is probably my favorite bet of the week, B. Hess. You absolutely nailed this one, and especially because Sam Darnold is going to Chicago, the Windy City. It's going to be in the mid to low 40s probably at kickoff for this game late in November. And that's prime time for a pumpkin to sprout. I can absolutely see Sam Darnold having his worst game as a Viking, and the Bears defense is going to be ready for it. And all that Caleb's going to need to be able to do is have some sort of decent game plan to get maybe 17 to 20 points. And I think that the Vikings are going down this week. It's definitely a smash spot for the Bears. And yeah, I think that this is really the time for the Bears to prove that they are still fighting for that playoff spot, even if it looks like it might be done. They gotta show something here. And before we move on, BS, I know we just talked about all four of the NFC West teams and how close that division is. I kind of want to get a little sneak preview into your 12 pack. How are you feeling about these four teams' chances of winning the division? Arizona Cardinals at 6-4, and the rest at 5-5. How do you see this one as far as the rankings shaking out?
I don't know if you've looked at schedules. I certainly did whenever I bet the Cardinals at over plus 300 to make the playoffs before the season started. But their schedule has been front loaded. They have played one of the top three toughest schedules in the season to this point, already 6-4. Meanwhile, they still have games against the Panthers and the Patriots coming up in upcoming weeks. So, and two games against the Seahawks. So if they can at least split against the Seahawks or win both of them. They've already beaten the Rams. They've already beaten the 49ers. They're 2-0 in the division. They'll play the return games in both of those matchups. Cardinals, certainly my pick to win the NFC West at this point. And then second, I'd have to go the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, they're healthy now. They're playing well. They had that loss to Miami. I think Miami's a good team with Tua, so I don't knock them that much for that. I even picked Miami in that game. I think the Rams number two team in that division. And number three, it's kind of a toss up between Seattle and San Francisco in that final spot. The problem with the 49ers now is they've already lost to every single team in that division. They've lost to the Cardinals in their only meeting, they've lost to the Rams in their only meeting, and they've lost to the Seahawks. Now they've already played them twice. They split with Seattle, but they're not going to win any tie breaks against anybody in that division because even if they win their other two division games, they're going to finish 3-3 in the division without having a sweep against any of their opponents. So it's hard to see San Francisco being at the top of the standings. They'd have to be a full game ahead of anybody because they're not going to win tiebreakers. Niners are in rough shape.
I like that, B Hess. I think it's going to be close between the Cardinals and the Rams getting the first place in that division. I do think the Seahawks and 49ers are probably going to end up around, 8, 7 wins, and that's not going to be enough. But I think that the Rams or the Cardinals, whoever doesn't win, is going to be able to sneak into that final wild card spot. A lot of people think that the Commanders and the Packers and the Vikings have those three locked up. But I think I could easily see the Commanders or Vikings slipping late in the year and the second place in that division getting that last wild card spot. That's how I see it playing out.
Certainly possible. It's a full game right now. To Washington, they're 7-5. It's actually a full two games. 7-5. They're in the 7 seed right now. And if you look at who the 8 seed is, it's one of those 5-5 teams in the NFC West. So right now, Washington's up 2 games, but we've seen a lot crazier happen. We're only in week 12. We've got week 18 to go. So still 7 more games for most teams, unless you still have a bye left. But yeah, a lot of football to be played. It's certainly not impossible that a wild card comes from that division, but teams would have to start ramping it up. I think that is fair to say. Well, it's time for me to mention the Chiefs again, Chiefs Panthers, and then we can talk about the Monday night game and any other games you have your eyes on. Chiefs Panthers, there's not much to say about this one, just like there wasn't for Lions Jaguars last week. This is just a brutal spot for Carolina. I don't care that they're off a bye. They're coming off back-to-back wins. They're a hapless team. They beat the Giants in Germany the last time they played in overtime because Tracy gifted them the ball 20 yards away from the end zone. They kick a game-winning field goal. That's great. The Chiefs will win. I don't even care if they end up covering or not. It's 10.5. It's a big spread. I think they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win by 7 or 8. But yet again, there's Chiefs are now 9-1. They finally have lost. So the cheat code of betting Chiefs money line, not a cheat code anymore. What is still a cheat code? If you fade the running back against the Chiefs, it is 10-0. James Cook, he had 2 touchdowns. Wow, what a big James Cook game. 2 touchdowns. You know how many rushing yards he finished with? 20. You know what his line was? 55.5. He didn't even get halfway there. That was an easy lock. That was the only bet I cashed in the Chiefs game. But the only two I had was Chiefs money line and James Cook. And so it's just easy. So I don't even care what the Chuba Hubbard line is. If it's more than 25, then just bet the under on Chuba Hubbard rushing yards. That is going to cash. And if you want to get to even money, I mentioned Cardinals. They're -1. Just parlay Chiefs money line with Cardinals. Now you've got a plus money bet there. And then bet separately Chuba Hubbard under rush yards. That would be my Chiefs play this week.
I like it. You got to ride with it. You finally put me and all the other Hesse Bros pod listeners on it, B Hess, and it's working out like a charm. My DraftKings is absolutely loving it. And yeah, you just got to bet the under on those other rushers. Yeah, not really
I
too
mean,
worried
Josh
about
Allen
that
was,
one.
this is the second week this season. Second week this season, almost third. If it wasn't for Audric Estime last week out rushing Bo Nix, it would have been the third week this season that the running back gets outrushed by their own quarterback. Lamar outrushed Derrick Henry, Josh Allen outrushed James Cook. Might happen again. I mean, I don't think Bryce Young's much of a runner, but you don't have to worry about that because you're just focused on running back unders with the Chiefs. It is 9 for 9. 10 for 10 if you count both Bucky and Rashad White, which is what I did with the Bucks. So basically, it's already even more games than they played. But yes, bet that one. That would be my Chiefs play. Any other games that you want to talk about? We will definitely talk about the Monday night Chargers, Ravens. Anything else before that?
Let's get to the Lions game. We got to talk about it. I'll be in attendance. It's going to be a great game for maybe the first quarter. Lions are going to kill them, but these are the two players you got to look out for this week. It's going to be David Montgomery early and often. We're setting the tone with our power back, and we're not gonna slow down. And then St. Brown is going for 8 consecutive games with a touchdown. Actually, no, he just got 8. He's going for 9. So that would tie the NFL record for most games in a row with a receiving touchdown. And trust me, Ben Johnson knows that, and we're getting him schemed up. The Colts are not going to be able to stop it. I would absolutely hammer St. Brown getting in the end zone, and that's what I'm going to do. It's free money. I'm telling you, it's going to happen, and we're getting that record. Lions by probably 17 to 20.
So I watched this Colts game. I ended up late. That was another late decider. Took Colts at plus 180 against the Jets just because people love the Jets for no reason. And Anthony Richardson leads a game-winning drive first week back after being benched by Joe Flacco. And the Colts, maybe the best that they've looked this season. Richardson still had a terrible play where he fumbles the ball. He lets the Jets scoop it up whenever the Colts were in complete control. But then he comes back. He's got guys hanging all over him, throwing darts down the field, connecting with Pierce, connecting with Josh Downs, making some good plays. I'm not definitely not on the Colts by any means, but is there any level of concern that this Colts team could put up a fight at home?
There's really not much concern, mainly for the reason that the Lions have the best two safety duo in the league for sure, and probably two of the best five safeties in the league with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. And we know Richardson loves just tossing that deep ball as far as he can and seeing what happens. And trust me, I'd definitely take one pick from Richardson, but probably at least 2 picks this game. He's going to be having to just air it out deep, and Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch got some hands back there. They're going to be ready to catch some punts from Richardson. So I'm not too worried about it. Maybe one or two of those deep balls does hit, but that'll close the gap to about 14 points at most. And so definitely not too worried about it this weekend.
All right, I can get on board with the Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown this week for the Lions. Well, the Monday night game is Baltimore coming off that divisional loss against Pittsburgh at the Chargers. This is a twofold question because I think this is an interesting game, no doubt. I think Lamar probably bounces back here against the Chargers as 3-point underdogs. What I'm more intrigued about, though, is the Chargers. They get a win, a big win against the Bengals. The Chiefs have a loss against the Bills. Meanwhile, in the AFC North, the Steelers go up a game and a half with a win against the Ravens. Is there any likelihood that either of those teams flip from second place in their division back up to first place? Ravens overtaking the Steelers, Chargers overtaking the Chiefs. And I guess your response on that would probably be your response on who can win the game because it's probably unlikely the team that loses is looking at second place in their division.
Yeah, I don't really see the Chargers overtaking the Chiefs at this point. The Chiefs do have a pretty tough schedule coming up, but the Chargers seem like they're kind of reaching their peak as far as the best that they can play. And we saw that was barely beating the Bengals. And so, they are playing well. They have a good coach, but Herbert's playing out of his mind. And these weapons that they have seem to, kind of be maxed out. I don't know how much more you can ask from this Chargers team. And so I think that, their ceiling is probably around the 6 seed or 5 seed in the AFC and most likely a first round exit, at least this year with the weapons that they have. They're definitely a big improvement from last year. And in the future, they're going to be, a team to be reckoned with Harbaugh. But this year, I don't see them being able to make that jump already. The Ravens are ready to go, though. They have one big issue, and it's their defense. It's their pass defense. That's why I like them in this game. Herbert has been playing really well, but I think that they can piece enough together as far as that pass defense goes to be able to stop them enough and get this win against Herbert, who's playing really well. but his pass catchers, are a little hit or miss as if they're going to be able to get open as much as other teams are able to.
I think so as well. The Steelers have a very tough schedule going forward. The Ravens, you mentioned their pass defense has struggled. There's no doubt about it. The last 2 weeks, however, may I remind you, the last 3 weeks. 2 weeks ago, in the middle of that, they were awful. They just let Jamar Chase just frolic down the middle of the field. The week before that, Bo Nix, who's playing well, didn't throw a passing touchdown. They only had one touchdown. It was Bo Nix on a trick play receiving touchdown. Then this week against Russell Wilson, no touchdowns for Russ. Instead, Russ throws a lollipop interception in the end zone. So those are the only touchdowns outside of the Bengals game in the last 3 weeks. The Ravens defense has given up. It was a trick play receiving touchdown for Bo Nix, I think on a fourth down as well. So the Ravens defense, if you I mean, you have to throw out the Bengals game, which is a tough one to throw out because they were atrocious. But if you can somehow do that, I like the Ravens not only to beat the Chargers, but to ultimately end up winning the AFC North. I think this is a perfect buy low spot. They just lost to the Steelers. They lost by 2 points on the road. Okay, the Steelers have a very tough schedule going forward. Hardly any gimmies left on the schedule. Their easiest game might be this Thursday night game against Cleveland, and that's not a gimme by any means. I like the Ravens to end up catching the Steelers, winning the AFC North, and they beat the Chargers and cover this week.
I think it has to happen. And plus, I mean, Lamar, he just had one of his worst games that we've ever seen him play. He wasn't able to get the 2 point conversion. I mean, even with as bad as the Ravens did play, it seemed like on offense, they still had a chance to tie up that game late. So they're going to be in it. And yeah, they do play the Steelers again at home, and that could very well decide the division. And you can't really count out Lamar and what they've got going on, even though it does seem like they might be a little shaky at times.
All right, well, that's my pick. I like a future Ravens to win the division. I also like, of course, Chuba Hubbard under rush yards. I like Bears money line, and I like a little parlay Chiefs Cardinals. Those are my main picks of the weekend, Luke. I'll certainly be riding with your Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown after you giving me those factoids. You'll be in attendance, so I'm sure you'll be making sure that Campbell and Johnson get the ball to number 14 in the end zone. Anything you want to go back on your picks? Anything else you want to add before I get to a 12 pack?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my main picks of the week, starting off Thursday, you got to take the Steelers and the over in that one. Riding with the Lions, of course, -7.5. Get that touchdown bet in for St. Brown. Chicago Bears, I love that pick, B. Hess. And a little sneaky one, too, here. We already talked about how the Commanders might be falling off a little bit. They're giving the Cowboys 10.5 points against the Commanders. I know the Cowboys have been trashed, but I'd lock that in. I'd lock that in with the Cowboys 10.5. The way that you've seen Jaden Daniels kind of fall off, their offense hasn't looked as good. And the Cowboys still have playmakers on that defense, even though they're not exactly showing everything right now that they're a great team. It's a buy low, or yeah, definitely a buy low spot for the Cowboys right now. They're not a terrible team. They have a lot of talent on that roster. And yeah, got to ride with the Ravens too on Monday night.
The Cowboys are pretty terrible. They've been down by 20 plus points in every single home game this year, and going back to last year's playoff game. It's absolutely the biggest streak in NFL history to be getting beat by 20 points at home every single week. So I don't know about the Cowboys. I guess they're lucky that they're at home. I probably won't be touching that game, just rooting for the Commanders to see if my future can stay alive. But all right, at least we mentioned that one. Are we ready for a 12 pack?
Let's get to it. I'm sure we're all thirsty.
Oh, I'm definitely thirsty. Well, we've got to rank the top 12 teams in the NFL based on how we think they are at this point. Last week it was Luke. Luke, can I remind everybody of your 12 pack?
Yeah.
All right, Luke had last week Lions 1, Chiefs 2, Ravens 3, Bills 4, Eagles 5, Steelers 6, 49ers 7, Commanders 8, Vikings 9, Packers 10, Cardinals 11, and Chargers 12. Now it is time for me to put the 12 pack together. Let's see where I let them fall. At
Let's
number
see.
12. The number 12 team in the NFL right now is the Houston Texans. This is a team that everyone thought could be a dark horse this year. I think they obviously had an easy win against the Cowboys this season. They have their flaws. I don't think they're a team that can make the Super Bowl, but they're obviously the front runners and they're going to win the AFC South. So give me Texans at 12. At number 11, the Chargers. They were shaky in the second half against the Bengals, but they got the win. They're a team on the improve. Harbaugh, we didn't really even touch on the fact that this is a Harbaugh Bowl in Ravens versus Chargers, but that's an interesting fact. I think that the Chargers are a good team, but I think they're limited, like we kind of mentioned. 11 feels like the right spot for them. Another team in the AFC, along with the Texans, that will be there in the playoffs. Maybe they win a playoff game, but they can't get much further than that. At number 10 is the Commanders. The Commanders, they've been disappointing recently. They're tough losses against good teams, teams that are ahead of them in this 12 pack, in the Steelers and the Eagles, but losses nonetheless. And Jaden, that's the worst part, is that Jaden just doesn't look as good as he did early on. And Kingsbury is not coming up with these great dynamic offensive plays. So that is the problem right now. Commanders, hopefully, they can turn it around with a cupcake against the Cowboys. That's number 10. At number 9 is a team that the Commanders blew out, but it was a couple months ago, at least a month ago, and they're a better team right now, and that is the good Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals at number 9. This is a team that I don't think wants to be messed with. I wouldn't want to mess with them. They've beaten a lot of good teams. They have played a lot of other good teams really closely. And they've got a crucial one against Seattle, but Kyler Murray is playing well. This defense continues to get better. I think that's the biggest factor is it's not just a Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison show with a strong offensive line and James Conner that isn't afraid to just run the ball a bunch. But the defense continues to get better under Gannon, the former defensive coordinator of the Eagles, whenever they had the best pass rush and the most sacks in NFL history. Gannon's getting this defense and players that aren't as good as other defenses to play to their potential and overperform. So give me the Cardinals at number 9. Number 8 is the Green Bay Packers. Packers survived a scare against the Bears this week, and they're another team that I still have my doubts on. I don't know if they can really get to the Super Bowl, but I think they're a good team that could win a playoff game in the NFC, and I think that they're just a solid team. It's going to be interesting this week. They've got a big one against the San Francisco 49ers. I think that's going to tell a lot about both teams. Just ahead of them at number 7 is the Minnesota Vikings, my second best team in the NFC North at this current rate. Sam Darnold looks like he could just implode at any point. The clock is just teetering on midnight for Sam Darnold. And Brian Flores is doing everything he can with that defense. Even still, Will Levis somehow threw a 98-yard touchdown pass against them last week. And if it weren't for a couple of penalties, the Titans may have beaten the Vikings. Vikings, I dropped them. Last time I had them really high. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, Luke was shocked. I had them in the top 5. I'm dropping them to number 7. Still think they're a good team with Justin Jefferson, but there are flaws there, just barely ahead of the Green Bay Packers. Now we will get to the top 6. At number 6 is the Philadelphia Eagles. There's still some doubts there with this team. I mean, they let the Commanders have the lead for 3 quarters, and they were not looking good. Hurts was missing some balls. They were just struggling, floundering for large portions of that game until the run game, and of course, Saquon Barkley ends up saving them late. The defense is better than I thought. I watched that full game. There's no other games on. I've been watching the Eagles this year, but there's other games on usually. This time it was just Philadelphia, and the defense is better than I thought, so I'll give credit to the Eagles. I've got them at number 6. Still some question marks with them. At number 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are a good team with a strong defense. Russell Wilson, I mean, he's better than Fields, I guess. I think that's fair. Whenever they put in Fields, whenever they switched to Wilson, I thought that was a poor move. That's proven to be a good move. But then you see him in a big spot like this against the Ravens. It wasn't his doing that they win that game. He relies on Boswell to kick 3 50-yard field goals and Justin Tucker to miss 2 field goals and to hold on in a win at home. So Pittsburgh, a good team, but another team that I don't see making the Super Bowl. They're limited. Now, number 4 is the team that Pittsburgh just beat, Baltimore. They're still number 4 for me. I think they're still a better team than Pittsburgh, even if you let them play at Heinz Field again. I think that Baltimore wins that game, and much less if they played at a neutral field or in the bank. The Ravens are the better team. Like I just said when we talked about the Ravens, I don't need to rehash that. I think their defense is getting a little bit better, and of course Lamar is way better than Russ Wilson. So Ravens at number 4. Luke, this is where we'll take our pause because we all know who the top 3 teams are in the 12 pack. It's just a matter of which one am I going to reach for first and second and third. But go ahead and give me your reactions 9 through 12 or 3 through 12.
I think you came up with a good list here, B. Hess. I guess having Houston on there does make sense, but I would argue it's that the Rams are a better team right now. We'll have to see the way it shakes out this week. They have, a pretty hard matchup coming up. But if they're able to get that win against the Eagles, you'll definitely be seeing the Rams in that 12 pack, and I think they got a good shot to do it. It'll definitely be a close game. But I'd put them in there, and then also I think the Chargers are a little bit too low here. I think that they should be above the Commanders and possibly even the Cardinals. But
Keep saying they're above the Cardinals. You said that last week, and I watched the Arizona Cardinals beat the Chargers.
I don't know. That's what I believe.
What about, okay, and I think the one that people are going to have questions on, Baltimore, number 4.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I mean, initially it's like, yeah, they just played last week. Steelers, you know, they got the win last week, but I think Baltimore's still the better team whenever it comes down to crunch time, whenever it comes down to when the games really matter. Obviously, a huge rivalry there, but if that was at home in Baltimore, they probably would have won that game. So I think they're definitely a bigger threat and a better team overall as far as the season is going to continue to roll.
All right, now we're going to get down to our final 3. I think it's pretty obvious who they are. If you're watching this and it's not obvious who they are, thank you for watching this. I don't know why you are because it's obvious. But I don't want to hear who you think the top 3 should be in order because that's going to come after I reveal my top 3 in order. But I would like to hear if you want to give it up, what you think my predictions are. If you had to predict, I've already got them listed right here. They're already listed. It's not changing. If you want to go ahead and say what you think I'm going to have the top 3 at in what order.
Well, I don't know. I feel like there's a decent chance you might throw the Lions at 3 just because you're like, well, the Bills beat the Chiefs. And then you're going to be like, well, the Chiefs are still better than the Bills. So I think you're going to go Lions, Bills, Chiefs because you're like, well, if the Bills
You
can
think
beat the
it's going to go,
Chiefs, why
you
aren't they
think it's
better than the
going to go
Lions?
Lions 3, Bills 2, Chiefs 1? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, from the bottom down. Yeah, Lions and then Bills and then Chiefs. But who knows? You could actually use some logic here and put the Lions at number 1. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's see what
Well,
it is,
here we go.
BS.
I just want to hear your prediction, and then you can tell me what the logic is at the end. So at number 3, I have the future 3-time Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now, I think they are the third best team in the NFL. They're a little banged up, and it's the regular season. So if this is playoff rankings, if this is most likely to win the Super Bowl, then this is different. But right now, if it's a regular season game, Andy Reid is running regular season plays. This team is on regular season mode, and in regular season mode, maybe they are the third best team in the league. I'll put Kansas City at number 3 currently, and at number 2, I will put the team that just beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills. Credit Josh Allen; they're a strong team. They're the number 1 contenders in the AFC, in my opinion, to the Chiefs. But the number 1 team in the league is the team that just keeps blowing everybody out and that just keeps not throwing incomplete passes. And even though their defense lost their best player, they're still shutting teams down. And it's the Detroit Lions. They are currently the number 1 team in the NFL.
Well, BS, your logic came in through. I always knew you're a bright guy, and that's how you do it right there. Clearly, the top 3. That's the way they have to be ranked after what we saw last
But
week.
that's exactly how you would rank them, and you thought I would rank them in the exact inverse order.
Yeah. No, I thought you'd have the Bills at number 1 just because you're like, all right, they did beat the
Oh,
Chiefs.
that's right.
Oh, I don't know who. But at the end of the day, that's how they have to be ranked. If you're watching these games and you're seeing what's going down on those football fields at this point in the season, there's no doubt about it. Obviously, it's the NFL. Anything could change week by week, but there's a reason why the Lions aren't just the best team in the league. They're also the betting Super Bowl favorites for the first time ever. since the Super Bowl's inception,
That's awesome.
and it's going to be the Detroit Lions, baby.
Well, you
Might
know
as well
what?
get your bets in now because it's only going to get lower and lower odds as we keep taking out these teams one by one.
You know why I think it's awesome that the Detroit Lions have the number one Super Bowl odds in the NFL? It's because the last time I bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, it was in the preseason when the San Francisco 49ers had the number one odds in the NFL to win the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs were number two. So now the Chiefs aren't number one with just not good odds. It's perfect time for me to start hammering them again. Kansas City, they're going to be fine. Right now, they are where you see them, number three in the 12 pack, but that's the regular season Chiefs. This is just how they are as a team currently. I still think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. But right now, I'll give credit to the Lions and the Bills. They're great teams. I have nothing bad to say about them. So currently, they're above the Chiefs in my 12 pack.
I love it, B Hess. And you got anything else for us? I think, we got them ready for week 12, and it's going to be a great week of football.
It is going to be a great week of football. Well, we already recapped all of our main bets. So just scroll right back to the beginning of the 12 pack if you want to hear those. Thank you so much for watching. I'm excited for another great week of football. Luke is going to be fired up for the Hoosiers, and then he's going to be live in Indianapolis for Lions versus Colts. Meanwhile, I'm going to be live at Arrowhead Stadium for Colorado versus Kansas on Saturday, and then fired up, of course, for Kansas City to get back and start that winning streak. They just broke a 15-game winning streak, so they're going to start a new 15-game winning streak, which includes beating the Panthers, winning the rest of their regular season games, winning playoff games, and then I think a 5-0 start, if my math is right, to next year. So, yeah, it's a great time for every football fan. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Appreciate all the love and support for the Hesse Bros pod. And that is your week 12 video. We'll see you next week for week 13. Number one in the 12 pack, the Lions, but go Chiefs.